Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining Attendance Works, the Institute for Educational Leadership, and campaign partners for the 2026 Attendance Awareness Campaign. My name is Jaden, and I will be your tech host. Before we begin, I want to share some tips to engage on today's call. Use the chat box to make comments and access resources we may share. To ask questions, please use the Q&A feature found on the black toolbar. You can adjust your volume to your own preferred setting. The quality of the audio will be based on everyone's individual bandwidth. If you would like closed captioning, click on the captioning function on the black toolbar, also on the bottom. After this webinar is over, you will receive the recording link, the slides, and all mentioned resources within the next 72 hours. Lastly, I want to encourage you all to tweet and share what you're learning by using the hashtag Your Presence Matters. Once again, thank you for joining today's webinar, Creating Community in the Fall. I'm now going to hand things over to Quasi Rollins, Chief Program Officer at the Institute of Educational Leadership and Chair and Advisory Board for Attendance Works. Quasi?
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Quasi Rollins and actually interim president of the Institute for Educational Leadership based here in Washington, D.C. Welcome. We're here for a very important session on a very important issue under today's theme, Create Community in the Fall. And as Jaden mentioned, this is webinar 3 of our 4-part series honoring attendance awareness campaign activities for this year. Let's go to the next slide. And so you'll hear from Hetty Chang, our fearless leader of Attendance Works, shortly, and you know who I am now. Next slide. So IEL is a 60-plus-year-old national nonprofit, again, based in Washington, D.C., home of the Coalition for Community Schools, and also our Youth Leadership and Transition Initiatives, which works with youth with disabilities and other youth at risk of being in criminal justice. And so we're known for many things over the years. I think changing systems through people, which you can see in my view screen, is kind of how we move, and we partner with leaders at every level. We partner with communities at every level and work together to co-create solutions and develop and support the capacity of leaders to change conditions. Let's move to the next slide. And of course, Attendance Works, the national leader in raising awareness to this important issue of chronic absenteeism, and really a thought leader on all of the major solutions. Attendance works to advance better policy, nurture proven and promising practices, and promote meaningful communication, as well as catalyzing research. And so you'll hear snippets of that as we go through today's webinar. We can go to the next slide. And so let's go to the next slide and go through the agenda, and then I'll come back to the convening partners. Our slides are reversed. So our agenda today, next slide is, yes, you're going to hear from Hetty Chang and Elliot Atisha, who's Senior Fellow for Health at Attendance Works. We're going to hear from an incredible panel on several bright spot districts and schools. You'll hear from folks in Fairfax, Virginia, Falls Church, Virginia, Alamosa, Colorado, etc. And then we will, have a back and forth dialogue, do a Q&A, and have some closing reflections and share resources. And now you can go backward to our convening partners and collaborative partners for this year. And big shot, you can see everyone here. Obviously, Attendance Works, the campaign for grade level reading, communities and schools, everyone graduates, Future Ed, Learning Heroes, Mentor Inc., National League of Cities, United Way, Healthy Schools campaign, and as always, IEL is proud to host these webinars. You'll see also a full list of other campaign partners, et cetera, on the Attendance Works website. Next slide, next 2 slides. Yeah. So this is the third in the series. All of these are immediately available after they take place, and you can go back and watch the others as well. This is number 3, Creating Community in the Fall, but it's part of our campaign theme this year, which is Your Presence Matters. We have one more left, ensuring support all year long in September. Let's go to the next slide. Your presence matters. This is our theme. This is what we're going to hear about today, how folks are operationalizing that locally at the school and district level. And we'll share how you can continue to do that in your day-to-day work. Next slide. This theme focuses on building trusting relationships. Everything begins with trust, trusting relationship with students, families, communities, staff. Listening to students is critical. Listening to families, not making assumptions, learning what their strengths are, learning the specific ways that you can help to meet some of their challenges in getting to school. And of course, your presence matters is a call to action for all of us to continue to work together to remove barriers and support students in attending school. Next slide. 5 key actions, and I won't take up too much time, but obviously we want to engage parents and guardians as partners, create safe environments, support health and well-being, and involve the entire community in our strategies and our actions. We fully believe that it's important to embrace a problem-solving approach based on data and to avoid punitive approaches. Next slide. Special thank you to our corporate campaign supporters, Kaiser Permanente, and also Parent Square, which offers on its website, and someone will share that in the chat, a practical guide for schools and districts to drive ongoing attendance improvement. Parent Square has an attendance team blueprint and is emerging as a really important tool that you should know about and you should use. Next slide. And then, of course, attendance works, and one of the ways that we make all of these services free is through your generous donations and the donations from corporate sponsors and others. For last week I had a meeting over a $15 smoothie. Imagine if I had instead sent that money, which I do every month, to Attendance Works for the price of a latte or an expensive smoothie. You can continue to support this work and make sure that all of these resources remain available to everyone. So we encourage you to donate and encourage your leaders to donate as well. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Hetty, and she's going to give us a little bit of an overview of what chronic absenteeism is, national overview, and then she and Elliot will take it away. So Hetty.
Thank you so much, Kwesi. As always, it's a pleasure to be here and join with you. And since we have an audience, we don't know what your backgrounds are. I want to just take a couple moments to explain a few key concepts that undergird all of what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, when we're thinking about chronic absence, we're talking about kids missing 10% or more of school for any reason, excused, unexcused, suspensions. This is different from truancy, which only typically focuses on unexcused absences, and it's different from average daily attendance, which is typically how many kids show up each day. The big difference is that when we're looking at chronic absence, we are trying to not go from an enforcement and a client compliance or a funding road, but we're trying to think about what's the impact when kids miss too much school on learning, and use that data to engage in a problem-solving, trauma-sensitive approach that begins with prevention, early intervention, and engagement of students and families. Because it's when we engage students and families to figure out why kids are missing school, and we can develop meaningful solutions. And if you go to the next slide, we know that chronic absence, missing 10% or more of school for any reason, rose extraordinarily from 1 out of 3 to from 1 out of 6 to almost 1 out of 3 at the height during the pandemic. And it's started to come down, but it's still a lot higher than it was before the pandemic. But the good news, if you go to the next slide, is that you can see it is getting reduced. We've been especially more successful in the early grades, though we have a lot more to do, particularly at the high school grades. And starting early, though, is so important because we know that when you can address it early, we can prevent kids from becoming further off track by the time they're older. Next slide. Whatever our solution, though, really requires identifying and addressing what are those causes that cause kids to miss school in the first place. Is it barriers? And this is particularly a challenge in high poverty schools. unaffordable housing, unreliable transportation, not having safe path to school? Is it aversion because kids are experiencing anxiety or bullying, or their families have bad experiences in schools? And so they're literally being kind of pushed out. Is it the lack of engagement? So disengagement, which we know increased during the pandemic, and in some ways, without an intentional strategy, isn't happening. And so that's like they don't feel connected to peers or adults, or they don't feel like what's happening in school is meaningful and relevant to where they want to go in the future. Or is it misconceptions? Because kids and families think, oh, I can just make up for online, or I don't realize that just missing 2 days a month is a challenge, or particularly post-pandemic is the challenge that kids and families think that they should stay home for any minor symptom of illness, when in fact that might not be so helpful. Stomach aches can be a sign of anxiety, and that's why we're going to talk a little bit more about health-related absences and addressing them in a moment. And next slide. The thing that we see is that what gets kids to come to school is when we invest in these positive conditions for learning, making sure that kids and families feel school is physically healthy and safe, making sure they feel a sense of belonging, connection, and support, making sure that they see school as challenging and relevant, and making sure that they're surrounded by peers and adults who invest in those relationships that, in fact, make all of these positive conditions possible. And if you go to the next slide, you can see this is really about putting in a tiered support system that begins with those positive conditions for learning and then uses data to identify and support kids who need more support. So I also want to make sure that you understand these levels build on each other. If you need to make sure that school is welcoming and engaging and there's a sense of belonging and support, and then you can message, oh, um, you need to be in school every day. And then you can also do early intervention where you notice the kid missing 10% or more of school and say, hey, I missed you. We want you here. And then if that doesn't work, you can bring in all the multiple agencies that might be required to provide wraparound services and do deeper support. And if you go to the next slide, you can see that what we see is that districts are essential to this. Districts have to have these key ingredients of change that make sure that this work is sustainable, including at the school site level. We need actionable data, positive engagement, strategic partnerships, adequate resources, shared responsibility, and capacity building to engage in all of this. At the same time, we at Attendance Works have seen and believe and know that states can be real vehicles for change. And both of these need a supportive ecosystem, which is why we're so glad that IEL and the Coalition of Community Schools is part of our partnership, because that helps to make sure we have that ecosystem of partners who can make this possible. If you go to the next slide, we know that this is about a year-long approach. So that's why we're creating community in the fall. You can think about winter as a place for ensuring supports. Spring is nurturing belonging so kids continue to show up throughout the year. And then summer, where we can engage and build bridges and start this cycle all over again. And now, if we go to the next slide, it's my pleasure to be able to, well, sorry, one more slide. And if you want, let's go back to the slide. Thank you. I also want to remind you that we have tools to help you engage in this year-long planning, and we hope you'll use these to really think about what's needed in your school, in your district, in your community. And then next slide, it is my pleasure to bring in Dr. Elliot Atisha. One of the strategic partnerships that we need more than ever is health partnerships. And we brought Elliot on as a senior fellow for health during the pandemic when it was clear to me, Elliot, that I needed extra health expertise to help guide us in how we thought about how do we really leverage health as a strategy for improving attendance. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Hetty. I am super excited to introduce the new toolkit and to give a quick overview. I'd like to first give a huge shout out and thank you to Johns Hopkins for leading the effort. along with the National Association of School Nurses, the Healthy Schools campaign, and of course, our amazing team at Attendance Works for supporting and endorsing this important resource. And this toolkit is organized around 4 health-focused actions that educators and health partners can take at the local, district, and state level to prevent health-related absences. This starts with prevention and promoting health and well-being. It includes prioritizing supporting relationships and creating healthy routines and habits at home and at school while maximizing access to school-based health services like vision and dental screenings, behavioral health supports, and vaccinations. And how we message is also important. Our messaging should be evidence-based, current, consistent, and culturally appropriate. And when messaging is done from a positive standpoint, it's much more effective, and parents are much more likely to engage. Parents also identify teachers and healthcare providers as trusted sources of information, especially when it comes to the importance of attendance and what families can do to keep their children healthy and in school. A key step is making sure we identify and understand the health needs of our students and why they're missing school. This includes identifying barriers and disparities, and it can be done through needs assessments, reviewing attendance and health data, and conducting health screenings. Identifying these barriers and the underlying root causes that Hetty mentioned earlier is critical to addressing them and reducing preventable absences. And one good place to start is to make sure every student with a chronic health issue or disability has an individualized health or education plan in place. When families know their child's needs will be supported, they're going to be much more likely to feel secure and safe in sending them to school. And last but not least, none of us can do this work alone. When education and health partners work together, that's when schools become better equipped to address the underlying root causes of chronic absence. And collaboration is especially important on attendance teams. We have to make sure that health is represented. That includes our school nurses, social workers, and other members of the health team. If we draw on their expertise, we can identify underlying health conditions much earlier. We can improve communication and we can better coordinate with our families. And it's this type of whole child team-based approach that not only improves attendance, but also helps create a healthier learning environment for every student. Next slide, please. So this slide is an example of how we can approach the messaging component of the toolkit through a year-long approach, allowing us to focus on different health priorities throughout the year. For example, in the summer, we can reinforce consistent routines, especially for the younger kids. We can encourage healthy eating, promote emotional well-being through outdoor activities, and remind parents to update their health forms and vaccinations in preparation for the start of the school year. In the fall, as students transition back, some might face anxiety or challenges adjusting to new routines. This is a great time to remind parents that this can be normal, but that it's also important to have open communication and check-ins and know when to seek support. In the winter, messaging can focus on illness prevention, creating backup plans for weather-related challenges, and helping our families really understand when or when not to send kids home or to stay home due to illnesses. And in the spring, as the days get longer and the weather starts to improve, hopefully, depending on what state you're from, we can reinforce the importance of maintaining healthy sleep routines and spending much more time outdoors. Next slide, please. So each of the 4 components of the toolkit is organized across school, local, and state level, highlighting the importance of that collaboration between health and education at each level. Through these cross-sector partnerships with public health, healthcare providers, and community organizations, schools and districts will gain a much deeper understanding of those broader social environmental factors that impact student health and attendance. Again, we are so excited about the release of this toolkit and the opportunity to share it with you. We are expecting it to go live this week, maybe even later today, and we will make sure to post it on our Attendance Works website. I'll hand it back to Hetty to lead us into our amazing panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Elliot. And the reason we wanted to cover this health piece is not only because this toolkit is available, but because we see part of supporting kids as they return to school is really paying attention to these health-related to decreasing unnecessary health-related absences. So we make sure that kids are well, they get the kinds of medical supports they need, and that we put in place healthy habits that will keep kids healthy all year long. Really appreciate, Elliot, what you said. And with that, I want to be able to turn to our panel, who will talk about and give you vivid pictures of what this can look like on the ground. What is successful practice to improve attendance look like on the ground? We're going to be joined from our friends from Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia, Laura Thiemann, who is the Senior Manager for Student Attendance and Engagement. We're also going to be joined by two of our deans who are deans of students who are at their high school, even though you saw in that data that high school chronic absence is a real challenge across the country, their high school has gotten chronic absence way back down. So Ileana Rios and Maria Martin, we're so glad they can join. And we'll be starting first with Fairfax, and then we're going to turn to Alamosa Public Schools from Alamosa, Colorado. And we'll be joined by Luis Murillo, the Assistant Superintendent, and Scott Aldridge, the Assistant Principal of the Alamosa Elementary School. So with that, we're going to turn first over to Fairfax, Virginia. And I'm going to ask that Laura, please join me. So we're going to start with a little bit of a district context. And I'd love for you, Laura, to just give us a little bit of sense about the demographics of Fairfax, Virginia, so people who don't know your district know how their district is similar or different from yours.
Yes, good afternoon, Hetty. Thank you so much. Warm hello from Northern Virginia. It's kind of humid today. Good afternoon to each of you. Fairfax County Public Schools is a large suburban school district in Virginia within the DC metropolitan area.
And Laura, I'm going to ask Shane to go to the next slide. It'll help people to follow.
Thank you. Yes. We are strengthened by the diversity of our student population with 194 languages spoken and over 177,000 students across 200 schools and centers. 20% of our students are multilingual learners, 17% receive special education, and over 7% are military connected. Our FCPS bus fleet is one of the largest bus fleets in the U.S., transporting over 1,600 buses each day, including 31 electric buses. Fun fact, we encompass an area of over 400 square miles, including land and water. So I'm ready for the next slide to share this.
You are pretty huge. So that what I was going to ask you, Laura, is what have you done around chronic absence? What have been the changes over time?
Yeah, so we wanted to provide you a 10-year snapshot for our journey here. So our district's chronic absenteeism trends, you can see starting in 15-16, that pre-pandemic, our baseline was about 8.5% chronic absence. We call it our pre-pandemic baseline. At the height of the pandemic's impact on chronic absence, that was reflected in the 22-23 school year at 17.1%. And you'll see this decline. And this past school year, just over 10.3%. A lot of gratitude for this collective work and care and all the strategies. I would like to share that some of our student groups, including our students with disabilities, our students who live with economic disadvantage, our multilingual learners, experience disproportionately higher rates of chronic absence. So the journey continues. Thank you, Hetty.
And Laura, first of all, congratulations. That is remarkable. You are not quite, but close to getting back to your pre-pandemic levels. That is no small feat. And one of the things we wanted to highlight is districts who've been able to do that so that people realize this truly is possible. Now, Laura, tell us, how did you manage to achieve this really incredible accomplishment?
Yes. So next slide, I'll briefly touch on three of the biggest barriers that we've seen to showing up to school. Health-related barriers are one of the key ones. Lack of awareness, support, and timely access to both physical and mental health resources. So I did want to highlight that. Concrete needs are another big barrier. Housing, food, other basic necessities for our students and families. And the third I call competing life priorities, where our students who are managing taking care of younger siblings while trying to work many hours weekly. So really holding that with awareness. But I'd like to just shift now into the 5 district strategies today that we'd like to highlight. First, our MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support approach to attendance, provides the foundation of a welcoming environment for all students, staff, and families. So this is a structured, data-driven framework for schools through a whole child and family-centered lens. Tier 1 establishes universal systems centering school family partnerships and also really focusing on those equitable learning environments. We also work to promote collective responsibility across all of our roles. These are our students. They are our students wherever we are in Fairfax County. The lights went on, which is great. So that's a great point around these are our collective students. Tier 2 introduces targeted interventions such as check and connect or mentoring, where we thoughtfully match and monitor implementation of an intervention to the root cause of chronic absence. Tier 3 provides intensive, more individualized support to include cross-sector collaboration and return to learn plans. So over time, and with dedication and care and consistency, and really helping to bring these routines back, schools are strengthening environments within their locus of control to ensure students feel welcome, connected, and supported. Next, I'd like to highlight family engagement. Now, our family engagement prioritizes early, positive, and ongoing communication with families, assuming positive intent. Assuming positive intent. I've never met a family that doesn't want the best for their children. We want the first time families hear from us to be on a very supportive note, something positive. An example of this, our family engagement, is our district's utilization of talking points, a two-way messaging platform using direct text communication in real time that helps schools and families stay connected. Through timely, meaningful communication, families can send and receive message in their preferred language with both text or voice messages they can choose, making this communication pathway more accessible, inclusive, and effective. And I will say that the data that we've gathered shows that higher utilization of talking points for those school communities is correlated with drops in chronic absenteeism. So I think that's very meaningful. Next, we'll just touch on proactive data use. This is where we identify student populations in need of targeted and early support. So, for example, during the summer months, our school teams review last year's data, looking at the trends, using our internal attendance dashboard to understand which groups of students, why wait, right, need more support early on, to include students who are transitioning between schools, elementary to middle, middle to high, between schools and programs, but also sibling groups, right? That family that has 2 elementary school students, a middle school student, a high school student. When helpful for the family, a single point of contact for engagement. When there are multiple schools, to reduce the family's feeling of being overwhelmed and increase the family's experience of being supported, and that partnering that helps move the whole family system forward. The next strategy is with school health, which is particularly close to my heart, where we continue to bring awareness to the intersectionality of health and attendance, looking for patterns of health-related absences, inviting the nurse into the conversation. Do the families know how to reach out to their school nurse? Do they know how to ask for a health plan? Do they know that that could be a very helpful resource for their family and student, especially for families who are with medically fragile children? We have strong and ongoing collaboration with our school health partners to integrate health and attendance messaging throughout the school year according to the seasons. For example, the hand washing, when to send your child to school. So our health flyer used to be entitled when to keep your child home, and we said let's just flip that around. Now it's entitled when to send your child to school. We lead with all the yeses, and then the no's are at the bottom. So this is a way that families can feel supported in the information that they need, and also offered support for when they're returning back to school. The last strategy I wanted to highlight is staff well-being. When our teachers and staff have safe and supportive spaces of their own, building and supporting a classroom can be very difficult, and sometimes the secondary trauma can be something that teachers and staff need to have support in managing so that they can feel energized, able to support their students and be a champion for their students. Speaking of staff who champion students, I'm extremely grateful for my two colleagues who are joining us today from one of our high schools to share more about their journey.
And Laura, just before we turn to your wonderful colleagues, I just want to thank you for this comprehensive overview of what you're doing and also acknowledge that what you talked about, and you started by talking about your key challenges that you're facing. What's clear is that you've grounded your district strategies in an understanding of what are those big barriers. And you're also making sure that you can have enough individualized outreach to kids and families so you understand each family's particular barriers while also using that understanding to organize your overall district approach. This is truly, truly helpful. I'm going to ask you if, when you have a chance, folks would love to know more about your tiered approaches. And I think if even an example of how you're doing that messaging around health and attendance, because we even had gotten cards, how do you make sure that families know when to show up to school and when not to, in a way that's respectful, that there are times when kids should not show up to school. So we're not trying to counteract that school health. We're just trying to get people to not unnecessarily miss school. And with that, I really want to invite Ileana Rios and also Maria Martin to join us. And as mentioned before, these are two deans at their high school. And let's start by just asking you to give us a little bit of a sense of your high school and what you've been able to achieve in terms of reducing chronic absence.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. So Fort Church High School is located in Fort Church, Virginia, and we are a Title I school. Our enrollment last year was 1,925 students. And as you can see in the graph, we have a very diverse population, but the majority of our students are Hispanics. If you could please go to the next slide.
So when Ileana and I first came to Falls Church High School in January of 2023, the chronic absence rate was at an all-time high of 30%. However, over the course of 4 years, we built a strong collaboration and communication system while using a variety of strategies to successfully reduce our chronic absence rate to 11%.
That is just phenomenal. Again, just taking a moment to celebrate.
Thank you.
More than halved your chronic absence rates. Can you tell us a little bit more about the key strategies that you've used to be able to get this achievement?
So in order to talk about our overarching strategies, we're going to start by telling you that we have shifted our approach from reactive responses to proactive problem solving by building the understanding that all absences are treated equally. We are constantly reflecting and improving our practices to reduce barriers and keep students motivated. At the end of every school year, Maria and I talk about what worked and what needs to change. Therefore, every year looks different. We emphasize restorative practices to focus on relationships such as teacher to teacher, student to student, and students to teacher. For Tier 1, in order to reach all of our students, Maria and I foster strong communication across our school community by sharing weekly updates with attendance tips and policies to help staff and families work together in supporting our students. We issue quarterly attendance report cards to keep families informed of their child's attendance and provide an early opportunity to collaborate on proactive intervention plans before absences escalate. We also host quarterly attendance workshops to empower families with up-to-date policy information, clarify attendance expectations, and address any question directly. We also streamlined the prearranged absence request process to minimize chronic absence and maintain the instructional flow. So unlike previous years, when families submitted their requests for leave during the school year and could be off for a very extended period of time, Maria and I now connect with the families to discuss the academic impact and work to reduce the total number of absences. We outlined clear return expectations, including attending the after-school recovery program to keep students academically engaged and on track for graduation. Maria is going to share what we do for Tier 2 and Tier 3.
Before she does it, I just want to call out, Eliana, how helpful your strategies are for really getting every single family to understand how much kids are missing, what that impact is, and what they need to do to make sure kids keep learning. I know this issue, for example, of people taking vacations sort of based on when they want to take vacations as opposed to in accordance with the school year is unfortunately a common issue and challenge. But by having these prearranged plans, and making sure they actually talk to you, you're forcing, because sometimes families really do need to go away. There's a reason they have to go visit grandma. A family member who's ill. There's those kinds of situations. But I think families can't make good decisions unless they really understand the consequences of what might happen when their kids are missing school, so they can then really figure out how they can do that thoughtfully. So just wanted to call out how lovely and important the strategies you are. Now, please, Maria, tell us about your Tier 2 and Tier 3.
Yes. So at the beginning of each school year, Ileana and I meet with our students who have a history of chronic absence. We set expectations and identify barriers early in the school year. We create individual plans at 7 absences rather than 10 as a proactive measure. And we have ongoing check-ins with our students, which gives us an opportunity to build those relationships with them. We have weekly Kid Talk meetings with our alpha teams. So in those meetings, we discuss specific students and the interventions we should implement to better support them. Ileana and I started an after-school attendance and academic recovery program to support students who have missed a lot of school or fallen behind academically. There's also Saturday school once a month to support our students. We help coordinate return to learn meetings with our students who have been out of school for medical or mental health reasons to support them with that smooth transition back to school. And of course, these are just a few of the key strategies that we use. It all depends on our students' individual needs and barriers.
Thank you so much. A couple things, folks. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A and not in the chat. I'm also going to encourage Maria and Eliana, as we turn to Alamosa, if you would just answer some of these questions about workshops, there's questions also about, I think, what your forms look like. If you could answer them, and then we'll also see what remains, because we'll have Q&A with everyone at the end. Thank you so much. And with that, I would love for Luis and Scott with Alamosa, Colorado to join us. So let's switch over to their slides. Let's bring on another district. And Scott, Luis, if you could join us, if we could highlight Luis, thank you. And let's start by your telling us a little bit more about your district demographics, a little bit different from Fairfax, Virginia. And then we'll ask you to also tell us about what the reductions you've seen in chronic absence.
Yeah, thank you. We titled our slides Everyday Matters. Something that I want to point out before I get into the demographics is that we are on a 4-day school week. Our students attend 147 days. So we really, really, really need to have them with us as much as of the 147 days as possible. So everyday matters. Demographics, we are just a little bit different than Fairfax County. We are in the beautiful state of Colorado in the San Luis Valley all the way down south. Usually when people think of Colorado, they might think of Denver. We're actually 4 hours southwest of Denver. We are a small rural district. Our enrollment is just under 2,000 students, 6 schools, 5 brick and mortar. We have an alternative and online school, and we serve almost 80% of our students do qualify for free and reduced lunch. About 70% of our families identify as minority. And then you could see 18.1% multilingual learners and about 50% of our students on an IEP.
Thank you. And so what have you seen in terms of your changes in chronic absence over time?
I'll start by saying that we still have some work to do. What we are proud to celebrate is over the last 5 years, we've been able to go back to pre-pandemic numbers. And as you can see in school year 22-23, we hit our highest number, which is about 31%. And then this past school year, we were able to get back to pre-pandemic numbers.
That's fabulous. And so before I want to ask you the question which Laura also answered, but in your district, which is a bit different from Fairfax, what are you seeing as some of the biggest barriers to kids showing up to school?
Well, there are lots of barriers. And post-pandemic, we knew that there are more options for families to send their students to online schools, to different schools that are popping up all throughout the United States. What we knew is that we could focus on the things that we can control. So what we looked at was how do our students feel when they do attend our school? So we actually looked at a survey that we administer called the U-Truth survey. And we noticed, next slide, please. We noticed that we could do better when it comes to belonging. What we were looking at longitudinal data, and what we found out is that we really needed to look at us and our practices, because even when students were coming to school, they were telling us like they didn't feel like they belonged. So we needed to change how we show up from the time they load the bus to the time they leave, so that once we do remove some of those barriers that I will talk about next, they wanted to come back and they wanted to stay in school. Some of the other barriers that we faced is poverty is very real. We serve almost 80% of our students that would qualify for free and reduced lunch. So barriers could be as complicated as a family needs 2 tires, and they haven't been able to bring their kids to school because they can't drive to school. So it's varied across schools and just depending on what the family needs.
So can you tell us a bit about the key strategies you've used to get back to those pre-pandemic levels?
Yes. The first thing that we wanted to do is we did not want our efforts to be a secret. We wanted everyone in a small community to know that we were working and we were serious on attendance. So we launched a campaign which we titled Everyday Matters. And we created nice logos and Everyday Matters, Cada Día Importa. We have stickers. And we wanted to ensure that everyone knew. So it's on our Facebook page, it is on our website, but we also partner with local coffee shops, and we actually have stickers. When someone purchased a coffee, they would stick it on the coffee cup. We partnered with the local Domino's Pizza, so when a pizza was delivered, you could see one of our stickers. We wanted everyone to know that every day matters. There's some other examples in the next slide of what some of our headers on our Facebook page could look like. We wanted to know that 90% of succeeding is actually showing up to school. And then we also started making videos that would depict our students saying, and you'll see an example, but they'll say something like, when it comes to choir, every day matters. When it comes to football, being a practice matters. So little just clips like that, because again, we wanted everyone to know that every day matters. We didn't want to just keep it a secret. We didn't want to just do it internally. We wanted a small community to help us out. I believe the next slide is a quick video sample of what we've done.
When you think of going to college, every day matters.
Kids are super cute, students are super cute, so we've seen a lot of traction when it comes to those quick videos. The other thing we did is we needed to look at our system. We needed to look at our practices, because we can put it out there, but we needed to tweak what it is that we do. Through the MTSS approach and our MTSS teams, we decided to start every year with the letter sent home to all families. And just like Fairfax County, we also count seat time. So it doesn't matter if you're gone for a week hunting or fishing, or if you are having to care for your younger sibling, that day we count it. And it starts counting towards the truancy days. Then we also worked within our student information system Power School to automatically send out letters to families. So our thresholds are 4, 8, and 10. And we've also gotten a lot of feedback on those letters. Families did not want the red lettering, they didn't want it to be big and bold. So anyway, we've tweaked those along the way. Just like Fairfax County, we intervene, and when we get to about 7 or 8 absences, we ask the families to come in, and we work with the families and our partners to create attendance success plans, or we also get into the attendance mediation. We really want to know what it is that they need from us or what barriers we can help remove, either through our resources or through our partners' resources so that they can make it to school. The other thing that we did, you'll see at the end, we also utilized truancy court as a tool that is very last resort, and we use it with just a handful of students where we have exhausted all of our resources, and we find that we cannot do more. But one thing that we did do is we actually met and worked with our local judge, our local truancy judge, and we had some questions around what is it that you need from us in order to work with the school district to help this family? Because I read the research around the school to prison pipeline, and we are very much aware and cognitive. We are coming at it from, we've exhausted the resources. They have some other resources to help the family. And to be honest, when we were talking about this within our system, the comment that came up is, okay, we're missing the teeth. We've done all of this, we bend over backwards, and then we are missing the teeth. So there's also part of that when it comes to engaging with court. But I will say it again, that is the very last resort, and we use it very seldomly.
Luis, in our conversations, my memory too is your judge is also holding you all accountable for doing all the prevention-oriented stuff before they can actually take you to court, correct?
Correct. That is the truancy checklist. And I appreciate the relationship we've been able to establish with the judge, because she sent 2 official letters. She pretty much dinged our district, and she said, your data is disproportionate. Go back and look at your system and make it better. She pointed out that we were filing on brown boys more disproportionately than anyone else in our system. So having those real, very honest conversations has really helped us move our system forward and better our practices.
I want to ask one quick question before. You said you tweaked the letters. What did you have to do to tweak?
When we started sending out the letters, they were big, red, bolded, and families let us know, hey, we're calling you. We don't like this. You're harassing us. So we found a happy medium where, we tweaked, we changed the font, we changed the bold, we changed the red to a green. So we just changed wording so that people know that, hey, we care, this matters, and you're not going to not send your kid to school, but we're listening to you. That's what we did.
Much more of a partnership approach, which I saw in the questions. Keep going.
All right. We also continue to look at what is it that we can do. So we looked at the MTSS triangle, the response to intervention triangle, which is on the next slide. And we have a small team. We're a small school district. We are lucky to have an MTSS coordinator, as well as an MTSS person per school, as well as a family engagement coordinator. But we also needed to be real within our capacity. So what we did is we worked on the triangle that you're seeing, and we looked at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and also we defined when it is that we intervene. Some examples of things we do in tier 1, again, very similar to what Fairfax County was talking about, is we make sure that every family gets at least one positive phone call home every single year. We track those, we celebrate them, we reward them per school, per teacher. We make sure that every family gets one. And then we've also been working on something that we're calling Project 100, which is to ensure that every single one of our students reports having a trusted adult within each one of their schools. We are at 88% right now, so we continue to strive to get there. And then under tier 2 and 3, one of the things that we've done since we're small, we quickly realized that we just don't have the resources to help all families in what it is that they might need. But together with our partners, we have a better chance. So we actually established a monthly community meeting where we do several things. One is we learn about what each other has to offer. And then two, we talk about families and we share resources in order to ensure that we are meeting as many of the needs of our families. The next slide is just a little bit of a zoom in into the tier 1, and we'll make sure that all of these are shared. But I'll also give you another example of what we've done, which what I think is the magic sauce, which is the family engagement approach, which is the next slide. Through Title I dollars, as well as some other grants, we've been able to establish a family engagement team in our district. This is new. We've only had it for 4 years now. And what you actually see in the back is a partnership. You see the Alamosa School District Family Center. That building does not belong to the district. It is actually a partnership with a nonprofit. We realized that in 2026, some of our buildings might not be as welcoming to some families, because unfortunately we have to deal with school shooters. So we partnered to have a place that is welcoming and safe for families to be a one-stop shop if they need help with anything. We've also established a plan as to how do we better engage with families. And some examples of that are we host many events. And I'll tell you kind of a funny story. Right there in the family center, because we're a proud member of our community, we put on a haunted house. And it's very scary. And you might think, well, school district, haunted house, what does that have to do with education? The way that our family engagement team looks at it is anytime we can bring people through our doors to engage, we'll take advantage of that. So the haunted house is put on by a lot of our 5th graders, middle schoolers. They love scaring people. But as participants are walking through the doors, we have QR codes, we have flyers. We're making sure that they know the information that we want them to know regarding our upcoming events. We also, next slide, we also now as a district conduct voice visits. We also learned through our listening session that the school district has been responsible for inflicting some pain and trauma over the years to some families. So we did not just want to assume that families wanted us in their home. Therefore, we don't call them home visits. Our approach is we want to hear your voice. We'll meet with you at the park. We'll meet with you at the family center. We'll meet with you at your home. We'll meet with you at our school. We just want to make sure that we're coming to the table to hear you out so that we can ensure that you are making it to school. Again, I will say family engagement has been the magic sauce for us. The next slide, it's busy, so I'll just tell you one story. We're very proud of the outcomes that we've been able to attain through this team and through our holistic approach. But one story that sticks out to me, we were having a lot of issues with a family at the 3-5 showing up to school, and we had tried to make phone calls. We had tried a home visit, and they didn't answer the door. And finally, they picked up the phone because one of our parent liaisons called, and we learned that this is the story I was referencing. The mother, a single mother of 3 kids, needed a little bit of money to replace tires and brakes. Well, school districts don't typically have funding for tires and brakes, but our community partners do. So we were able to connect the mom, the family, with some of our community partners to get her a mechanic, to buy 2 new tires and brakes, so that eventually that mom had all the tools to bring their kids to school. And the last picture just shows, or the last slide just shows some pictures of the events that we've been able to put together, from our academies to a registration tour, where we go to farm labor housing. We go to trailer parks to ensure that our families are getting the need they help. Now, if you don't have any questions, I'm going to pass it on to Scott, who's going to talk about.
I'm going to do one question, then pass it on to Scott, because we are doing okay on time. What's our truancy checklist that you mentioned that happens before going to the judge?
I'm going to say a few things, and then I'll pass it on to Scott, because he's the one that's been using it more. So the truancy checklist, it's a checklist, but for example, it'll say, have you had a mediation? And is the mediation mediated by someone that works at the Center for Restorative Programs or has been trained by the Center for Restorative Programs? Because we want to ensure that restorative practices are embedded in your system rather than inviting the family and just telling them, hey, you're not here and this is what we're going to do next. So that is just one example of what is on the checklist. Scott, do you want to add a few more things on there?
Yeah, definitely going through the checklist, it's making sure it's put the ownership on the school that we've done everything possible to remove those barriers. It's also looking that we're also not moving too quick. A lot of times, do we have data showing that their attendance is improving? That we've done all these strategies to really, move the needle in the right direction. But like I said, it puts the ownership back on the school district to make sure that we've done everything we can and that it is truly a last resort. That it's one of the things that we don't want to do. We don't want to initiate. And if we've done everything that we're supposed to do, and that we've definitely can prove that we've taken all the necessary steps, that then they can go to the family and the course can support us.
Fabulous. Okay, we are going to shift to Scott, not just on this, but to talk about what's happening in the elementary school. Luis, maybe one of the things that folks would love to see is that checklist. If you can either put it here, or we can also make it available in the materials which we post on the website at the end of this webinar. I will tell everyone, we post everything on our website at the same place where you registered, and you'll get access to the recording, to the PowerPoint, and additional materials that get requested. With that, Scott, tell us about your elementary school.
So I'm the assistant principal at Alamos Elementary K2. Just like Dr. Murillo talked about, our demographics mirror the same thing at the district level. So we are primarily serving Hispanic and Latinos. I pulled our data from 25-26. So we have 66% of our population would be classified as Hispanic. We also are sitting around 73% of our students would qualify for free and reduced lunch. So we are a Title I school. The other data that I shared up here is kind of our historical chronic absenteeism rate. Like Dr. Murillo said, we do have a lot of work to do. One of the things we're most proud about is definitely coming out of COVID. We were looking at around 44% of our students were chronically absent. I think when I remember that year, it was almost 211 students out of 480 would have been considered chronically absent at the end of the year. The following year is when we really started initiating a lot of these practices. Our Attendance Matters campaign, using a lot of our tiered system and MTS's approach to addressing attendance. And so then the following year, we were actually able to come down to averages that were closer to the state. So like I said, after kind of a lot of the work we were able to do, laying that groundwork, we're now closer to the state average on those, and we still got work to do and to go from there. We want to keep building from there.
All right. I'm going to ask Jaden to go to the next slide, which I think is a visual of some of what you talked about. Yeah?
Yeah. And just like we said with Fairfax County, we try and follow a tiered approach. We want to make sure that we're doing the best thing we can for our families and students. Before we kind of dive into them, I do want to say one of the unique strategies about being in a K2 is, you are dealing with young families. They might be their first experience in formal education. Some of the families don't know a lot of the policies or practices or what's best for their students. So we do spend a lot of our universal prevention with really educating families and trying to build those relationships. Obviously, we have our district level Attendance Matters campaign. The way that looks in our school specifically is, we have all the posters around, we have all of our messaging about the importance of attendance. We also make sure that our MTSS coordinator and family parent liaison are available at all times. They are in our building. They are available at any kind of school function, whether it be a performance or back to school night. And a lot of times what they're doing is they're giving out information, trying to build those relationships. Sometimes they're giving out messaging about when sick is too sick, what kind of the effects of, missing 2 days a month, how that can lead to chronic absenteeism. So they are giving out a lot of that information to families. Like Dr. Murillo talked about earlier, we do send out different attendance letters at different thresholds throughout the school year. We do send those out on a weekly basis. Those are sent out by myself and the MTSS coordinator when they hit different thresholds. We also send out different information at the beginning of the year and end of the year. And throughout the year, just making sure we're getting our messaging about the importance of attendance and what families can do to help their students be successful. So that also goes with our daily attendance notifications. So we do send out daily attendance notifications at 8:45 every day if the student misses school. So families should be aware of where they are in attendance. Also, one of our big universal prevention strategies is really making sure we have a lot of school and teacher communication. Our school uses Class Dojo for our communication between the school, between the family and the teacher. We want to make sure that's a strong relationship, that the teacher is communicating with the family about what's going on at school, make sure they're sharing pictures and what they can do to help their student. We do send out quite a bit of school communication through Bright Arrow. Once again, sometimes they're just information for the students and families about what they can do to be helping. A couple of things that we do, I think, are kind of unique is we do have 4 assemblies throughout the year, quarterly assemblies, where we're celebrating students' success. And during those assemblies, we also celebrate improvement in attendance. We do get out if students have perfect attendance during a quarter, or even if students are improving in attendance, because we get to invite the families in, they get to see their student win an award, and then the student usually gets celebrated with like popsicles or popcorn afterwards. Another thing we try and do to make sure we build a relationship is we do greet every family when they drop off. So me and the principal are always out there greeting families. One of the unique things we did this year actually was we partnered with Adams State University, and they actually send football players over every Thursday. It was called Knuckles Thursday, and you'd have these big football players giving people knuckles and greeting kids how they walked into the school. So it was one of those things, we were trying to create that welcoming environment. We were making sure that families and students felt connected to the school and felt welcomed, just as kind of a universal prevention at our Tier 1 strategies.
That is fantastic. Yeah. Scott, and you were kind of going in that you're having success at the elementary school. And I'm actually going to invite all of the panelists to come back, because I think we can do some really interesting cross-cutting questions. But what do you see as the keys to success in the elementary school as opposed to a middle or high school?
Well, one thing that's kind of unique about elementary is like we are dealing with the families. If a student isn't coming to school, it's not because they left the campus or anything like that. So we really work on building that relationship with the families and educating them at an early age. I know we didn't show it, but if we broke down our data, our biggest issues with attendance is always with our kindergartners, and it's our families of kindergartners. Like a lot of it, we are trying to do as much as we can to educate families. We really target on them and focus on them about the importance of school. So it is really making sure that we are giving the correct information out there. We also do the same thing. We assume best intentions. These families want what's best for their kids. We have to take that approach also and make sure that we're positive with every single student, that they are welcome, that they're being heard and they're listened to, especially in the early grades.
And Maria and Eliana, what would you say when you're thinking about high school kids?
So when we see
from your perspective, what's most effective to keep in mind when you're talking about older kids and their families?
Connections. Every time though, the mindset, understanding that when you get to high school, everything is different, right? Some of these kids, they have to work in addition to coming to school. So we're having those connections, that understanding. You have to be very open, right, to their hearts and be able to be flexible in changing and adapting so that they can understand, okay, this person cares enough for me, so I'm going to start showing up. Because if they don't feel it, they're not going to come. Because different to the little ones, they have to come because mom and dad will bring them. When they become a little adult and they actually have control driving, they have to feel that I have that connection as someone in the building so that at least I can get to school. And that, I will say, is that one of the most important things in terms of high school.
And a number of folks are asking about when kids return to school after a transition or they've been gone a lot. What are your approaches to helping those kids get back academically?
So we have return to learn meetings. We help coordinate that with our counselors and our social workers and school psychologists. Our APs are involved as well as the deans. So we get everyone, that whole team approach. We get the families there with the student. And we also get information about their medical needs, what type of accommodations they need in school so that they know that school is a safe place and we can support them, whether it's mental health support with our clinical team, our school nurse with their medical needs. We just make sure that all of their needs are being met at school so that family feels supported and they feel that they can send their child to school and not have to worry about them in that respect. So we create all these meetings. We talk to teachers ahead of time. We may reduce, make some adjustments to the schedule to ease them or transition them back to school. We make sure they know where to go if they need to just get out of the classroom and get that additional support. And we just make it a safe place and make it somewhere they want to return. And we don't, we make sure that teachers understand that some assignments can be excused because the child may not be able to make every single thing up. So, what's essential for that student to be successful.
And I'd be curious, Scott, working with a much younger population and families, how do you ensure that kids who are returning after being away uh, can succeed academically? Are there any particular transition approaches?
So a lot of times we do want to make sure that, like when Dr. Muir talked about, like Project 100, that those students have a connection with the trusted adult. The nice thing at this younger level, a lot of times it is just their teacher. And so a lot of times the teachers establish those relationships and have that relationship already with the family. But one of the things we also do is we kind of go through our tiered approach is if the student needs another connection with another staff member, we have counselors, we have a lot of, AmeriCorps members, of volunteers and other things like that in our building that we also try and maybe do check-ins with that student, where that student has a check-in on Monday, with one of those trusted adults. So we're trying to make sure that student is connected, that family knows that there's multiple people in that building that care about their student, and really whatever we think that student needs so that they feel welcomed and they feel like they should be in school.
Thank you. There is a question also in the Q&A that's coming from Minnesota, and essentially they're talking about how in Minnesota, they in St. Paul, their chronic absence rates were showing improvements, and basically the metro surge in the last half of the year had an incredible impact, and they're now back in rebuilding mode, but it's a different feeling because kids and families are afraid for their safety, being separated. It's different than what was in COVID. And they're talking about they sort of summarizes what they're dealing with, but I'm curious about for both of you, have you seen an impact from ICE rates? And what has that done for you? What's been the impact on your kids and families, and what have you found as strategies for countering that? And Luis, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, we have not seen raids. We have seen individual targeted deportations. The biggest effect is fear. There's been and continue to be a lot of fear amongst our families, amongst our students, which has affected attendance. What we've done is several things. One of them is, of course, we work within our system to protect our students as much as we can legally. That's one. Two, we've also made our counselors very aware about what's been going on so that they could individually provide support to the students that might need support. And then number three, through our family engagement, as well as collaboration with local nonprofits and immigration agencies, we've been able to provide preparedness meetings or meetings after hours. And we've been able to do this by word of mouth. We don't publicize any of these. We don't want anyone to feel like they cannot attend. And we feel that our efforts have been successful. Quick story, we host every year, we call it Lectura Mi Familia, which is a multilingual celebration of culture and languages. And 2 years ago, there was a rumor that ICE was going to show up to our event, and we were able to quickly talk to our local police department to see what they were hearing, and we were able to send out the message that it was a hoax. Anyway, we had a really good attendance. This is a really hard topic because the fear is very hard to combat.
Yeah. Laura, I'm curious, in Fairfax, what's happened there and what have you done?
Yes, thank you. So In accordance with federal law, Fairfax County Public Schools doesn't require any student or family member to share their immigration status. And FCPS does not collect student or family member immigration status. And so we have a set of resources across multiple languages that have to do with legal resources, community resources, internal and external resources, so that our families feel supported in sending their children to school, and that there's also an understanding of how difficult this can be and the impact on learning and being able to help in whatever way we can in terms of our locus of control.
Thank you. I will say that from Attendance Works, we've seen that this makes sort of these key strategies for family engagement and student connectedness even more essential. And also paperwork like, do you know who your contact is? So should anything happen to a family member, not just because of outrage, but anything else, do you have updated contact information? Is there someone for the kid to go to? Making sure that families are connected to each other so that they can give each other good information about what's happening in their community. These are all like standard practices that become even more essential in these kind of volatile times. Yeah, go ahead, Laura, please.
So thank you. We do have a family preparedness plan example for families to access if that's something that would be supportive to them. Thanks for mentioning that. I think feeling prepared, feeling where to turn if something happens, and it helps lower the sense of stress. So and the feeling of knowing who your trusted family and friends are.
Couple more questions. One is, maybe this is getting to Laura and Luis. What did it take to change the punitive language in your notifications? I think both of your districts have actually made a pretty conscious effort to change from a kind of a punitive to more partnership approach. And Luis, you gave specifics on like what was in it, but was that hard to do? Did people disagree with that? Did you have to overcome, was that what did it take to get the supported? And then are there particular tips that you would give operationally to other districts who are trying to shift that language and that framing?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest challenge for us is a certain portion of our staff who feel like we're asking them to, bend over backwards, and then, the families or the students still get a lollipop at the end of the day, and that is furthest from the truth. So they were asking for, teeth and accountability, and what do we do about, students? For us, we've been able to really ground on our core beliefs, our district core beliefs, to then continue to push the work forward where we still have accountability, but we're looking at the bigger picture. We're emphasizing restorative practices so that we can continue to, again, get rid of as many barriers as possible while still holding the families accountable as much as we can. But we were able to stand strong by, again, standing on our core beliefs, which has helped to have tough conversations whenever they do arise.
Laura, what about for Fairfax?
Yes, so similarly, it's been a journey I think the changing of the mindset has meant that we've had to seek out kind of a lot of light bulb moments. And for example, we have caring conversations where it's not where were you? Here's the work you have to make up. It's how are you doing? Welcome back. We miss you. Our classroom is so much stronger when you're here, and helping our students be engaged while they get caught up, for example, on work. We talked earlier about the return to learn process. But in terms of messaging, we shifted to we want to partner with you. Chronic absence is our division's responsibility, and we want to remove barriers that get in your way. So I think it was a shift and doing a lot of reflection and trying to be patient with people, staff who are feeling frustrated around, like, we can't consequence our way out of absences. And when we think like in the right conditions, every student and family can thrive, that really shifts us to what are the conditions? How do we, like in our language now, it's if your student misses school, it's, your student has missed first period, third period. We're here to support you. Please call us, let us know what we can do to help. So we've changed the way that messaging is received, and we've allowed families to have different ways of contacting us as well. So we have an online way, we have phone, there's email, there's talking points. We want to make sure there's more opportunities for two-way partnering. But I think the shifting of the mindset has been most significant. And I think it also brings us back to, we're human beings. We need connection. We have to honor the dignity of every person in front of us. And also, trust has been broken at points for our families in major ways. And being able to say, this has been hard. What is it that you would appreciate from us? How can we support you?
That is so helpful. And thinking about it both about the language that you use as well as the mindset of staff. I will say the one thing we've also found is using like 2x10s, where you have people have talked to a kid for 2 minutes for 10 days. Because when people talk to kids, I think Louisa can't make those assumptions. Oh, it's just kids who don't care. Once you talk to a kid over time, they realize something different is actually happening and they have to rethink their assumptions. Both of you talk a lot about community partnerships. I'm curious, or both districts, and anyone here, what's been your most, I don't know, effective community partnership? Can you just give an example of something where, because so much of this may be even beyond what schools but themselves have the resource to do. Could you give an examples of a community partnership that worked, and how did you actually go about securing that community partnership?
I'm glad you asked this question. I saw it in the Q&A and I was starting to type and I just didn't get to it. We partner with a not-profit called Shooting Stars, and their goal is around culturally relevant education, and they partner with us. They specifically work with middle school students, could be boys or girls, and they work with students who are beginning to struggle with truancy because they're beginning to feel disconnected. We own our part of the disconnection, but they also help us, and they have a super cool program called the Willy Wonka Project, which is grounded on lowrider bikes. And Willy Wonka comes from the colors that the students get to paint the bike. And where the partnership comes in is it begins maybe on a Friday or after hours. They begin to learn about the lowrider culture, the bikes. They begin to work on the bikes to where they eventually get to bring it back into the school and showcase their bike. And when the kids bring the lowrider bikes that they worked on, that they painted purple or pineapple or apple green, I mean, everyone, the rest of the kids want to get on the bike. So we are able to then reconnect with those students back into our school community. That's just one example.
All right. Laura or Maria, Ileana, Scott?
I'll highlight one quickly, and I'd love my my other colleagues to chime in. Northern Virginia Family Services is one of our key community partners, and they have family-centered support, early intervention, and a lot of other supports for our families. And this has been a really strong partnership, including mental health, trauma recovery, immigration, legal services, workforce development, child, family, and youth services, housing, food, and urgent support, community health, just kind of a wraparound approach. I sit within social work services in Fairfax County Public Schools, so that relationship was established by social work leadership, and then there's been a lot of lunch and learns and opportunities and memorandums of understanding and ways to collaborate so that our school division is aware of Northern Virginia Family Services in the way that, when appropriate, this match can be really helpful for our families.
Thank you. I'm actually going to shift to a different question. So this was a question I think I'm going to direct it to Maria and Ileana. The question is whether or not privileges should be tied to attendance, particularly for high school kids, like parking passes, different things. How have you, and then if Luis, if you are doing that at the high school level, you can also mention, but Maria, Liana, what's your reaction to that?
terms of having privileges and exceptions based on anything, we try here to, and I can only speak for our school, right, to be very fair. Because of our demographic and the minority here, obviously, are the whites and Black and Asian as well as others. We try to make it fair for all because we have a very strong PTSA, and we built an amazing relationship with them, and we really try, like I said, to make it, and we use the fair equity across. And equity means that not everything is equal, but we do whatever it needs to be done to benefit those that need the help. I don't know if that will, so it goes not so much.
So part of what I'm hearing you, Maria, I'm just going to unpack them a bit. Sometimes the kids who can show up the most are actually kids who are economically the best off because they face the lowest resources. So if you gave privileges, then you might be inadvertently just benefiting a certain group of kids, is what I'm hearing from you. So just wanted to, I think that's what you're saying in that. Luis, how have you guys thought about privileges and or the taking away of privileges? I mean, you've also seen that where people say, well, I mean, this is a court strategy. Kids who have poor attendance, you're not going to be able to get your driver's license. Like that becomes something, or you can't participate in varsity sports. Just curious about how you have thought or looked at any of these issues.
I'm glad you're bringing up this topic because, to be completely honest, we haven't had the conversation. So I don't want to give you an answer that could be incorrect. The things that we have looked at are gaining access to CTE courses, gaining access to APE courses, gaining access to our guidance counselors at the high school, and how, again, a student that could have more privileges is at school more often gets a different experience. So we're aware of that. We're working on that, but we haven't really looked at some of the other privileges that you mentioned. But thank you for mentioning that because we do really need to.
One thing I will mention just from our perspective, I think whenever we look at attendance, we have to look at two questions. What are the the reasons that are causing kids to be absent from school? And for example, the issue of driver's license, I worry that a kid who's struggling economically, having unreliable transportation, not access to resources, by taking away their driver's license, you just may be like making everything worse. So we have to be very careful that our actions mirror our understanding of what causes kids to not make school and what allows them to be in school. Now I'm going to end with a last question to all of you. I just love for each of you, and you're in different positions. You're a dean, you're a principal, you're an assistant superintendent, you're a director of attendance. If you were to give a kind of 1 to 2 sentences word of advice for someone who's in your job alike about what they could do to improve attendance, what would it be?
Be open-minded and flexible.
Be proactive rather than reactive.
I would be take time to build trust.
Create the conditions for the teams within our system to be successful.
This job's about people. Even though you're moving in further away from the classroom, it feels like it's always going to be about connections and people. If you don't forget that, you'll be fine.
Thank you. Kwesi, I would love to turn it back to you.
Thanks, Hetty, and thanks to this wonderful, wonderful panel. Very inspirational. It's so good to get a perspective from kind of district leadership, classroom leadership, other departments, principals' perspective. We need all of that to be part of the solution. Chronic absenteeism is an indicator that has everyone's attention, but the high levels of attention don't automatically lead to aligned responses, particularly in larger systems or places with limited resources. And so, as some of you said, our strategies have to be grounded in a deep understanding of our particular challenges and barriers. And we absolutely have to avoid strategies. Some, for example, like taking away privileges or offering incentives, strategies that are usually based on untested assumptions. And so There's a lot of urgency, and so folks want to act, but we've got to have our strategies grounded in a deep understanding of what's going on. We've heard creative use of existing funds. We've heard creative use of partner supports. We've heard lots of cross-district collaboration and within school collaboration. And these bright spots, and this is the last thing I'll say before we go back to the slides, we offer these bright spots, to inspire. And I think I certainly am inspired by their work, and I hope you all are inspired too, but not to discourage. So this isn't about saying, well, we can never do that here. Of course, you can do your version of what you've heard here today in your places and spaces. And that's the message I leave you with. Of course you can. Maybe not exactly as they did it, maybe not the exact platform or program, but with continued dedication and creativity, these things become possible. And that starts with trust, connection, as we heard, trust across the board, within schools, out of schools, parents, students, etc. So let's go back to the slides. We know that, I don't know the exact date, but this guidance health book that Elliot talked about is going to be out soon. You'll find out, and that information will be available on the Attendance Works web page, and someone will put the link in the chat, and you'll receive that information along with other resources and the slides within a few days of this webinar. And so we definitely want to promote healthy guidance as part of the strategy. Next slide. Please do promote the campaign. I mean, I don't know about you, but these webinars have a lot of participants because this issue is critically important, but nevertheless, pass the word. It's never too late. We want to proclaim September Attendance Awareness Month. We want to share all of the materials that we have. We want you to follow Attendance Works and all of us on all of the relevant social media platforms. And if you can, add an Attendance Awareness Campaign badge to your signature, your website, or your other materials. So please do reach out and find all of the other information that we have available and join our listserv if you haven't already, with thousands of members who are dedicated to improving these issues. Next slide. As always, within a few days, you'll have access to this webinar. You already have access to the previous 2 webinars in the series, and so you'll have access to the resources, webinars, everything that we've talked about here today. So it's yours. And next. And do let us know how we can improve. You can use the link that'll be in your chat, or you can take a quick photo of this QR code and be directed directly to our survey on how we can improve. And on behalf of the Attendance Works team and advisory board, I want to thank again Hetty, her wonderful team. I want to thank Jaden on our team for doing the tech hosting, and everyone else that's spoken here today. Just powerful examples, inspiring, hopeful, and just what we need to get ready for school opening. Thanks to everybody. I think that's the last slide. Take care, everyone. Be safe. Special thanks to the Heising Simons Foundation, the Overdeck Foundation, and Attendance Works individual donors. So sorry. All of our philanthropic partners. Are there any other slides? There are no more slides. Excellent. Take care, folks. Be safe.